Success, overcoming, and winning in life is no accident. Creating individual success is like having a recipe for a great meal. It only works if you know how to use the ingredients. As a best-selling author, entrepreneur, business coach, strategist, and champion, the Lewis Howard Live Show provides you the insider's view on winning. All we do is win, 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 helping you become the best version of yourself. Welcome to another edition of Lewis Howard Live. And of course, I am Lewis Howard. I'm always excited to hang out with you for a few minutes and bring you some wisdom, some insight, and whatever's fresh off the top of my mind. I like to hang up in my lair here. I have multiple offices, but this is and a studio, and but this is one of the places I like to just kind of bring you some quick thoughts and so forth. So hey, how you doing? So I've been thinking a lot about influence and our world that we are currently in, as we have exited, for the most part, a pandemic, and now we're into post-pandemic world, whatever you call that. But there's still after effects that are influencing our daily lives, right? Some people are still not comfortable not wearing a mask, and that's not a judgment; it's just an observation. Some people still feel comfortable, not uh, exposing themselves to, having a mask. Um, and But the world keeps going, isn't it? Interesting that no matter what happens, time does not stop, and it keeps going. So, I just want to talk about just the power of influence, because it really is so important in our culture, in our world. And I'm looking up kind of what I wrote, and what how important influence is for everything you do, right? I heard somebody just say this: the who in your life influences the where. Okay, what does that mean? That means who you hang around with, who is most important to you, will influence where you end up. So, if you're a college or high school, even elementary, who you're hanging around with will decide where you go. One of the best quotes I ever heard uh, was from one of my favorite motivator, teachers, inspiration, success champions, was Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn said this. He said, "There's two parts to influence. Their first influence is powerful, and the second influence is subtle," which he goes on to say, he says, "You wouldn't let someone push you off course, but you might let someone nudge you off course and not even realize it." That's how important the who is. So, who are you listening to? Who is your muse? Who is your mentor? It's a big word in our culture, right? My mentor. And sometimes people will pick you as a mentor. You don't even know they've picked you. I have people I've picked as a mentor. They don't know, but they are the who. And they are influencing my decisions and choices on some level. So they're edging me in a direction that I may not be aware of it. So your who influences your where. It's powerful to know, because I think sometimes we just digest things because it sounds good to our ear, and yet we don't know what that effect has on us. When you're standing around, listen to your boys talk about how they treat their women and treat their wives, or maybe you're listening to songs about certain views of a woman and how you're going to treat her and what she's good for, and how many you got in every area code or whatever the thing is, that will start to influence you, because all of a sudden you may start thinking, well, I need to talk that way to my girl or my wife or my partner, and that may not work. So be careful what the who is. So I got ahead of myself. Let's talk about what is influence. And of course, I got a full show coming up on this where we did a interview with a political candidate running for office, and I wanted to get his take on his perspective, and so I'm going to also get some different perspectives from people. But I just think as a culture, as a collaborative, and when I say culture, I mean worldwide, because many of you are hearing my show worldwide in different parts of the nation, different parts of the country, UK, Japan, and different places. And so when I say that, I'm thinking worldwide. So an influence is one who exerts influence, a person who inspires or guides the actions of others. So if you go back in your early days, your coach, if you were in sports, was an influencer to you. Your teacher was an influencer to you. The people you hung around at lunch were influencers to you. And certainly your parental structure, your parents, your family were influences to you, whether you wanted them to be or not. And so sometimes what happens with influence, you pick up habits, you pick up ways of doing things from the people that influence you. There's this old story about a girl cooking in the kitchen, and she was cooking, I think, a ham, and she used a certain kind of pan, and the pan was too big for the ham, but she kept using it. And someone said, "Why are you using a pan that size?" And she stopped for a moment. She goes, "Well, that's because that's what my grandmother did." So her influence from her grandmother led to how she prepared a meal, even though it wasn't necessarily practical. What are you doing that you have learned from someone that has been a mentor that's not even practical for you? I did it for years, right? I've picked up habits from people and tried to carry them out, and they weren't practical. There was a time where I grew up around hustlers and uh, pimps and street dudes, and you're hanging around them. And so, as a young boy, I picked up some of their habits, and one of their habits was always have a stack of cash. Right, always have a stack of cash. And so I just picked up this habit of constantly, I want to have a stack of cash because that really shows how cool I am. Right. And as I got older and got into the business world, I started to hang around what my mentors were millionaires, and they carried a little cash, but they never carry stacks of cash, because when you're carrying that much cash, that money is not working for you. So they knew that to keep the best money in the bank, keep a little bit of pocket change, maybe a couple thousand here and there. But the reason why these guys did that is, one, they didn't have bank accounts, they didn't have credit, right? They didn't have storehouses to put their money into. So they carried their wealth around with them. And a lot of them would end up being robbed, in jail, murdered over that money. Or they would lose the money because they would get into a gambling situation. So, but that influenced me for years to think I needed to have a stack of money in my hand to prove I was like the guys who influenced me. So, something subtle, right? But it steers you, as Jim Rohn said, it pushes you in a certain direction. Because if your money's in your hand, it's not in the bank, right? Now, I salute if you can do both. If I can keep a big stack of money in my hand, and I get to keep a big stack of money in a bank. So you see the Cash Money team, right? The boxer, right? He does that a lot, right? He throws stacks and stacks of money on the bed because he's got stacks and stacks of money, right? Because he's made big money into the fight, and so he can stack his cash. Mayweather can put his money out like that. He can stack it in a Maybach if he wants to do it. We see rappers trying to emulate that, but the rappers don't have that kind of cash, right? A lot of times they're borrowing money from a banker who's standing off on the side of the video, letting them use the cash so they can act like they're making it rain when they're really borrowing the money. They're leasing the money. It's not really their money. And if it is, the money's not working for you if you're sitting there playing with it like that. So that's just one example of influence. It's how you work. Your work ethic could be influenced by your influencer, who influenced you on work habits, right? Where did you learn work habits? And so if you learned work habits from the agrarian age, which is the farm age, and we're in the technology age, and you're heavily influenced by beating the sun up, right? And getting out and getting your work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And yet technology never sleeps. So the reason why the agrarian people did that, because it got hot. So by noon, it was hot, and you were not going to be able to work at noon. So you needed to get up before the sun came up. So you have 3 or 4 or 5 hours to put into your work before it got too hot. Because by between 12 and 3, I don't know about you, but I was raised in the South. And I know by 3 o'clock, you're not playing outside. You are going from point A to point B, and usually one air conditioner to another air conditioner. So that was what drove the agrarian society. They needed to get up. I mean, technology. I can run this thing 24/7. It's always going. I can get up any kind of time of the day, and I don't have a limit. I don't have a turnoff time. So what are you influenced by that's maybe it's outdated? If you were in the industrial age, right? We call it the industrial age, where that was the age of factories, where the dad, mom, grandpa, they worked a 40-hour week in the factory because that was what was required. You talk to a lot of people that worked in General Motors, steel plants, and they had to put in a 40-hour week. One, that was union required because they were part of a union, and that was part of the deal that they would make is putting in a 40-hour week. But the other reason is because their work combined with 15 other people work is what got the wheel or the engine or the things as a part of the assembly line. They were part of assembly line. So they had to put a certain amount of time into that. Okay. So again, that was an industrial age, right? That was the factory age. And usually those people burn out after 20 years. They can't keep up and doing it. So guess what they had to do? Retire. Okay. I hear people talk about retire. What are you retiring from? It's like this big word. I retired at 30. I retired at 40. Right. But the reason why those people retired is because their bodies couldn't hold up to that 8 to 5. They could do it when there was 20 and 30 and 40, but they couldn't do that back breaking labor work when they're 50 or 60. Their health would not hold up. And so there became this age of retirement in America that says by 60, yeah, you probably need to start taking it easy. But man, again, I'm living in the tech world. I don't need to take it easy. It's not tiring me to sit here and do this with you. I'm using very little energy sitting here to do it other than what's coming out of me as far as, vocal. So again, we just do things. We're influenced by things we don't even understand, right? So it's not just an individual, it is a cultural influence. You're influenced by whatever political party you follow. Okay, you're influenced by that. You listen to that particular individual, you follow what they say, you believe what they say, you trust what they say, and you have conversations based on what they say. I've been in a room with people that I know that they are repeating a narrative that somebody told them on CNN that they heard from some expert, some lobbyist, and now they're repeating it about a certain matter or a certain thing. Okay. Same with the other side. But is that your narrative, or is that somebody else's narrative influencing your conversation? Right. Biggest narrative right now as I'm doing this show is the incident between Chris Rock and Will Smith. Okay. And you got people on both sides of it, and they're influenced by one thing that they hear, then they're influenced by another thing that they hear. But here's my question to you. What does it matter to you at the end of the day? Whether it was staged or whether it was real, whether Will had a mental breakdown or whether it was some stunt. What does it matter to you? Did that make you richer? Did your family get healthier off of that? Did you get a promotion for coming in and having the latest details? No, you know what it was? It was a distraction conversation to kind of take you out of your world for a few minutes and let you think about something else. It influenced you to kind of check out. I've learned just to keep my head straight ahead and stay out of that, because if it's not personally, hey, if it ain't my cousin, it ain't my kid, if it ain't my family, and it's not part of my mission, my assignment, and purpose, nah, I really don't care that much. And I know that sounds kind of selfish, but it is, because if I don't watch it, I'll be into everybody's business except my own. Okay. I'm up to speed on everybody's life, and mine is falling apart. And so I want my life put together so I can help more people just like what I'm doing with you. So influences go way back. They go way, way back, and and it really is designed for you just to think about a little bit about what influence is. Let me uh, just give a couple takeaways. Number one, no influencer starts with a goal to be an influencer. They become an influence usually through their work, through their opportunities, or through their platforms, right? Um, you want to focus on being an agent of change. If you become an agent of change, you'll get to influence. Oprah Winfrey did not start out trying to be an influencer. Oprah Winfrey started out trying to get a job and an opportunity. She had gotten fired from WGN in Chicago, and she wanted to come back. She still wanted to be in that space, and it gave her an opportunity to do that. And now, of course, that involved into great influence in the shows that she's done, but that's not how she started out, right? She didn't start out going, I'm gonna be Oprah, I'm gonna be this great big thing in the world. No, sometimes you just start out with the simplest thing. I got a dream, and here's what I want to do. Influencers have both vision and character, right? Influence is a person that can show you certain things about their life and lifestyle and how much money that they have and what they're doing and who they're doing it with and where they're going and what I'm eating and how cool I am. But if you don't have the character to go with that, I don't want you influencing me, and I don't want you influencing my family. I don't want you influencing my life. Why? Because character matters. I don't need just the optics of the person being a good person. I need the reality. I need the character. How's the character check? Let me hear about that character thing, right? We see that in athletics. The person is extremely talented, but guess what? Got a character issue. So you got to fix both. You got to have vision, but you also got to have character. I've spent a lot of years working on my character, right? I think my character is more popular than my vision, but I wanted to be a person that people could count on. If you put me in a room with $1 million, you better know there might be 2 million when you come back, but it ain't gonna be less than 1 million, right? I'm gonna make sure it's there because that's what character does. If you leave me in charge of something, it's gonna be the same or better than when you gave it to me, right? Uh, don't use people to profit for your own gain. This is for people that want to be influencers, right? Don't use people, right? That's a horrible way to be an influencer. There's a lot of people use social media to use people to get them money and get them big and get their platform. And you followed them and you've done all the things, and yet your life is the same. So don't be a user of people, right? Be a giver of people. Be an investor into people. Be a contributor to people. Be patient, whatever you want to do. If you want to be influential, be patient. It takes time. There's no flipping the switch, right? Some people make you believe that they're overnight successes. There are no overnight successes. Everybody had to wait in line at some place at some time. Don't believe that, right? And usually, when people do get overnight success, they usually crash really quick because their system internally is not really ready for that. So be patient. Be patient with the growth and expansion. You'll get there if that's what your call is. You'll get there. Model what you teach and demonstrate to others. So if I happen to be able to fortunate enough to sit down to dinner with you and you're a billionaire and you are a mentor, model what you've been teaching. What I find a lot of times when I sit down with successful people, they're very different in private than they're showing in public. And the two don't line up, and it's usually not in a good way. You want to be the same person privately as you are publicly. Now, I'm not saying that you don't value your privacy because some people do, and they're more laid back in their private world, but their character is the same. Their mindset is the same. They're not saying one thing on stage and doing a whole nother thing, right? Off stage, telling you not to drink on stage and they're getting drunk off stage, right? Whatever is not a judgment. I'm just saying be the same, be consistent. I can't tell you how many people have met their idols and met their heroes, and they were so disappointed by their behavior. There's a famous actor, and I won't call his name, but we were hanging out together in Bellevue, Washington. And this guy had just come off winning an Oscar for supporting actor in a kind of a comedy movie with Jerry Maguire. You may know his name. I don't want to, call his name out because I don't have permission to do that. But anyway, he met some people, and we met and was talking, and I think he maybe was going through a bad time at that point. But some of the things that he did and said was out of character with what the perception of him was. And literally, after a while, I had people coming up to me and go, "Hey, your boy is out. out of line over you, or he did that, or that was not cool, or whatever, right? So you wanna be able to, now everybody has a bad day, bad season, bad time. Not again, yeah, that happens. But for the most part, if you're meeting a little 7-year-old kid, you want to be that same kid, the model that that kid saw playing on the field. You are a role model. Sorry, Charles Barkley. You just, when you become a public figure, you also become a role model. Be approachable, right? This is really for people that have a big platform, and you become famous and you become a name, and all of a sudden now you don't want to be approached. We got 30 bodyguards around you, but you made your name being approachable. Try to keep your life where it's approachable. My goal is that no matter how much wealth, influence, impact, places I go, I always want to be approachable. Be approachable. It's really cool. Finish what you start. If you start something, then finish it. That's really the greatest part of influence, is people know that if you're going to get involved with something, you're going to go all the way. If you're going to start a fundraiser with someone, finish it. If you're going to launch a project with them, finish it. If you're going to volunteer something, finish it, start it, and also finish it. So this is just a few takeaways on influence, and I hope that you got something out of it. Hope that it was worth just the 20 minutes of time that you sort of sat here with me, and we'll keep bringing you a couple of shows here and there, and catch the upcoming show with um, a political candidate for congressional night in Seattle that I interviewed as well. And we'll see you again on another edition of Lewis Howard Live.
Every great champion knows that success, overcoming, and winning in life is no accident. Creating individual success is like having a recipe for a great meal. It only works if you know how to use the ingredients. As a best-selling author, entrepreneur, business coach, strategist, and champion, the Lewis Howard Live Show provides you the insider's view on winning. All we do is win, 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 helping you become the best version of yourself.